Okay, get ready. This is a shocker, and it seems to be true, and it seems to have been proven now, as far as I'm concerned, by this recent excavation, which I'll talk about in a minute. According to Velikovsky, who did all the research on this, everybody had the same story. Little variations of differences, but basically the same thing at the same time. And here it was. Venus took the form of a huge rogue comet after being ejected by Jupiter not long before 1500 BC. All right, not long before 1500 BC, remember that. It then hurtled sunward, side-swiping Earth twice, colliding with Mars before settling into its almost perfect orbit now. Remember that. Venus was ejected from Jupiter around 1500 BC, and it just about destroyed Earth by sideswiping it twice, then hit Mars. Let's see if we have any evidence to support that. Okay, my friends, this is exciting as it gets. I just got this from a friend of mine, Dion, and it's just came out, and it's a biblical sin city, Sodom, destroyed by an asteroid stronger than a nuke, say the experts. At first, when I saw this, I said, oh, here they go again. They're going to see something. Well, this has some serious evidence behind it. And I think I can explain exactly what happened. I don't think it was a nuke, but we'll talk about it in a second. It says, excavations in Jordan offer compelling evidence of the authenticity of the Bible tale of the destruction of Sodom, but by an asteroid impact. Well, they're excavating this one particular area, and here's what they found. I am going to just let them do it audibly. And they have commercials in here about Arizona State University. That's fine. You know, they did the work. Let's hear what they have to say. Now, this is the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah from an 1852 drawing by John Martin. Now, it met a fiery end in what could be described as an asteroid impact, more powerful than an atomic explosion. Let's listen to hear what they say. This is listening to the article powered by Trinity Audio. Here it goes.
Biblical Sin City Sodom destroyed by asteroid stronger than nuke. Expert. Excavations in Jordan offer compelling evidence for the authenticity of the biblical tale of the destruction of Sodom, but by an asteroid impact, says theologian Dr. John Bergsma. An ancient city that met a fiery end in what could be described as an asteroid impact more powerful than an atomic explosion has been identified as the biblical city of Sodom, according to a biblical studies expert. Dr. John Bergsma, a prominent theologian, contends that excavations in Jordan provide substantial proof that one of the Bible's most dramatic and improbable narratives may indeed be factual. Bergsma asserts that archaeological findings in Jordan corroborate the existence of the biblical city of Sodom. Prior research had already indicated that the ancient city of Tel El-Amam, located in the southern Jordan Valley, suffered a catastrophic fate, a revelation that Dr. John Bergsma, a theology professor at Ohio's Franciscan University, believes aligns with the biblical account.
All right, well, I want you to be really, really mindful. Pay attention to the details. I will try to stop and elaborate as they come along. Here goes.
As per the book of Genesis, God unleashed brimstone and fire upon the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah in response to the sins of their inhabitants, resulting in their complete obliteration. Similar destruction patterns were uncovered at Tel El-Amam, leading Bergsma to reevaluate the credibility of the biblical narrative. He pointed to signs of extreme heat detected on skeletons and pottery fragments unearthed by archaeologists.
All right, extreme heat. Remember that.
Suggesting a possible impact from an asteroid. Does this unearthed site at Tel El-Amam represent the biblical Sodom? Around 3,600 years ago.
3,600 years ago. Velikovsky put it at 3,500 years ago. 3,600, well, we can go with that. All right, so here goes.
Tel El-Amam thrived as a city, surpassing both Jerusalem and Jericho in size and strength. However, its prosperity abruptly vanished. The absence of sign
abruptly vanished. All right, and they say there was no military action going on here. This just gone.
Of a siege and the ruins suggested that the city and its neighboring area were not subjected to military attack. Bergsma received insight into some remarkable discoveries from Stephen Collins, the chief archaeologist at Tel El-Amam. Among these discoveries were pottery shards coated with Trinitite, a glassy substance formed when an atomic bomb detonates in a desert, as Bergsma explained. Additionally, human remains were uncovered, with skeletons intact up to the mid-spine.
Now listen to this very carefully. Skeletons intact up to the mid-spine. Above that, they were vaporized. Listen very carefully.
Above which only scorch marks remained. These findings provide substantial evidence that a tremendous burst of heat from the sky incinerated the twin cities on the Jordanian side of the river. Stephen Collins likened the devastation to the Tunguska event of 1908, in which a massive asteroid entered Earth's atmosphere over Siberia, causing widespread destruction. He added the proposed airburst would have been larger than the Tunguska event, which had 1,000 times more energy than the atomic bomb that destroyed Hiroshima. Remarkably, this cataclysmic event also appears to have produced substantial quantities of salt, as noted by James.
Substantial quantities of salt. No military intervention. Instantly wiped off the face of the planet. Approximately 3,600 years ago. All right, it's going to come up with their commercial, and I'm going to let that play because they deserve it. Here goes.
Kent, an associate professor of earth sciences at the University of California, a detail that may remind some of the story of Lot's wife, who turned into a pillar of salt following the destruction of Sodom. While Collins is confident in his conclusions, some archaeologists have accused him of prematurely drawing conclusions without sufficient field evidence. The story of Sodom and its sister city, Gomorrah, ranks among the most well-known tales in the Bible. It recounts Abraham's negotiations with God to spare Sodom, a name synonymous with sin, in order to protect its few righteous inhabitants. However, God's response was unwavering, and he turned over these cities and the entire plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and the vegetation of the ground, as recorded in the book of Genesis. The morning after, Abraham witnessed the aftermath, and he looked over the face of Sodom and Gomorrah and over the entire face of the land of the plain, and he saw, and behold, the smoke of the earth had risen like the smoke of a furnace.
Well, didn't play their commercial, but I think it was through the University of Arizona. And there's some parts of this I agree with, some parts I don't agree with. And the interpretation of the whole thing is up to you to decide. But as far as I can see, the Great Flood happened back at this time, and everything else fits that pattern of no military, instantaneous, heavy salt, vaporized above the waist. And that's because Venus almost hit Earth. And it vaporized the skies. Now, they could have been right dead nuts in the path of it, because somebody got hit real hard and some didn't get hit hard at all. It appears that was the spot that really got whacked. And I can show you on Venus and Mars what happened when they interacted, because it was even worse. Okay, I just want to make sure you understand this article was by the Jerusalem Post. They're the ones that were responsible for the content, and I appreciate being able to discuss it. And I'd love to speak to these people, because without having the understanding of the mud fossils and that the earth is literally constructed of creatures, nothing is ever going to make sense. Now let me show you Venus and Mars and what did happen to cause that event that I just spoke about and try to explain. And let me show you what the discharge was into our atmosphere, which would create exactly that at exactly the time they're speaking of. Okay, my friends, this is a revelation. Remember we talked about these two sites, this Tel Al-Aman, and there's another one right next to it. They think they might have been Sodom and Gomorrah. Heavily populated, very productive, and then wiped out. Here's the key. Vaporized from the waist up, basically, is what they're saying. Now, this is because of basically the same thing that happens in a nuclear bomb. They also found Trinitite, which is formed in nuclear blasts. But what is a nuclear blast? It's just an extreme concussion which fuses silicon fibers or silicon molecules into each other and creates a glassy substance called Trinitite. We'll look at that in a second. But it's a glassy substance formed when an atomic bomb detonates in a desert. No, not necessarily. And I will explain to you exactly how this happened, or could have happened. Additionally, human remains were uncovered with the skeletons intact up to the mid-spine. Above that, only scorch marks remain. Two possibilities for that. One is explosion because of all of the body fluids that are up in your upper body, and the other one is that they were standing in water, apparently, possibly up to their waist. I don't know. It says the findings provide substantial evidence that a tremendous burst of heat from the sky incinerated twin cities on the Jordan side of the river. Let's take a look at what Trinitite is. And again, if they were in water up to their waists approximately, this is exactly what would have happened. So there's one possibility. The other one is all of the body fluids will explode. And when I show you Trinitite, you're going to see something very similar to this, where the body fluids had it just evacuated from a lung. I have some stuff that you could call Trinitite right here. Let's take a look. See, that's Trinitite right there. These lungs have tons of blood in them. The blood is what vaporizes, and that because there's all the moisture in there. Moisture creates a tremendous amount of heat when it gets hit by heavy radiation. That's what microwave ovens do. Same thing, basically. Okay, I spoke about Sodom and Gomorrah, and here it is. This is Wiki. I find them very, very credible, very thorough. Now, this is about Sodom and Gomorrah, two biblical cities destroyed by God for their wickedness. A story parallels the Genesis flood narrative, and it happened right at that same time. So the details of what happened could be a little bit different, but it's very, very close. So it details the flood narrative and the theme of God's anger provoked by the man's sin. They're mentioned frequently in the prophets and the New Testament as symbols of human wickedness and divine retribution. Quran also contains a version of the story about the two cities. They were bad people doing bad things. The narrative of the destruction may have a relation to the remains of 3rd millennia BC Bronze Age cities in the region, which they just excavated and found all the things, and I believe I've already shown this, that support exactly what I'm saying. And, there's a little bit of disagreement about this and that, but it's pretty much exactly what they said. They were doing really bad sexual deviant things. Now, could that just mean they were just, we think, they were just a little crazy sexually, or were they doing deviant things with monsters and stuff like that, and creating giants and all that kind of stuff? I believe that's the case. That's the way I'm looking at it now. All right, just like anything, I look for the details, and some of the details I find hard to explain in the events that they portray as happening with Sodom and Gomorrah, with the angels coming down and they wanted to rape the angels and so forth. That's possible. I can't discount that. There's no way I can discount it. But I find it very convincing that it happened during this time of Venus's intervention into our atmosphere and causing all the havoc and the catastrophes. Now, did a discharge from Venus cause these cities to explode? That's very possible, but it couldn't have happened the way it's being explained here if that is the case. If they sent these angels that they're going to tell them, we're going to destroy your city, and then it happened the way they claim it. It couldn't have been the way I think it's possible, where Venus discharged. That's just a guess. I don't like to guess, but it just fits into so convenient what Velikovsky had discovered throughout all the cultures on Earth, all of them. And maybe they were the worst of the worst, and Venus was sent to discharge there. But it still wouldn't fit with the narrative of the storyline of how the events unfolded. So you can go one way, you can go the other. That's all speculation, the Sodom and Gomorrah thing. But if they were having this really crazy sex with animals and all kinds of things, well, maybe they would want to wipe them off the face of the planet. There's a lot to this. So it's one way or the other. All right, this is a mind blower. This is Mount Olympus in Greece. This is where the ancient gods were supposed to reign from. All of the Olympians, that's what I call them, the Olympians, they were from Mount Olympus. I'm almost certain this is a heart. All right, you see first of all, you see all the green? Whenever you see a lot of green, it means you've got a lot of blood there. Blood creates things very, very green. And the heart, obviously, is saturated with blood. Now, it's pumping blood out of here somewhere to this way and down this way to wherever it goes. But I believe this was actually the heart. And here's the, look at this. See right here? That's one of the, I think that could very well be the aorta. And there's another one, well, Mount Olympus is right here. This is a deep cavity, and I don't know which one this is. There's a whole batch of them that sit right on top of the heart where all the plumbing comes out. And there's one here I can see for sure, and this one here is, to me, for sure. And that one there is another one that's quite likely. But there's like 4 or 5 different spots, and then the rest is just all blood. All right, this is what you got, like the seam right here at the top of the heart, and you got all that plumbing that comes out of here, all these tubes and the big holes, and that's what I was showing you. And that's why it looks different, and the bottom is just saturated with blood, leaks out all over the place, and that's why everything was green. All right, so I'm saying they cut right off on this plane, and this right here is the same thing. This is this seam. It runs right around the whole thing. Here, all this is like that right there. This is another cavity here. This little spot right here, I'm going to show you. A friend of mine found one. He saw the blood in there, and he hit it, and the whole top broke right off, and down inside was all blood. But this is where these tubes would have attached. This still has all the really gooey stuff that just covered up the holes. So it's sealed up, and like there's another big spot on the bottom. I don't know what that's from, but there's a seam that runs all the way around. And if you, in certain conditions, well, he found his, there was a crack right there. He hit it and it opened right up. Watch. I'm pretty sure this is almost exactly the same thing. There was a little spot right there, just about like this, and the blood was running out of it. He saw that, and he just smacked it, and it's broke right on that seam. Right on that seam. And all the plumbing came off, and here's where the red blood is, and the not so red blood, and then the lymph and the completely used blood. All right, you see this? This is Trinitite, they claim. It's a sandstone sedimentary rock, a type of sandstone. 25% feldspar. Arctic sand is sand that is similarly rich in feldspar and thus potential precursor of that, which is this glass was primarily composed of that stuff right there. Well, this is that stuff right there. All right, and this is a lung. All right, I know what it is exactly. It's a lung. And this is what they're seeing is this stuff. You know, and this was formed in the same conditions as this was formed. It just happens that they happen to be at this place, and that was the main concussion. This right here, again, this is nothing more than some part of a lung or some part of the body, because there's a ton of moisture in people's bodies. It's just saturated with it. So when it's just like a microwave oven on steroids, pow, everything goes. And that was what blows these things into bits and pieces, and it also seals them. Now, this didn't have as much on like a glassy surface on the outside, but inside you can see it is the same as the other one that I just showed you a second ago, the Akashic. This stuff here. That's this. I put that in a microscope because there's no way you can tell the difference. It's zero. It's exactly identical. And on the outside it is too. Of course, you'd have to wash it up a little bit. But that's what this is. Look. It's all the same everything. That's because this was a little tiny lung. And it had all that moisture in there, and it vaporized. And I looked at a bunch of that stuff, the Trinitite. It's all the same. And I agree, it gets fused when it gets hit with unbelievable amounts of radiation. And that's exactly what would have happened when Venus almost hit Earth. And they could have been the impact site. So I'm not saying anything's wrong with this idea about Sodom and Gomorrah at all. It seems to fit the whole pattern, but it wasn't just one little hit. It was the event that wiped everything out at 3,600 years ago. That's what it sounds like to me. All right, this is exactly what I would expect to see under these circumstances of a nuclear bomb or the Venus impact with all that electric discharge. Because that electric discharge is nothing more than the same stuff that comes from a nuclear blast. And the nuclear blast just creates an enormous amount of electronic interaction, which creates a lot of heat and vaporizes everything that can absorb electrons, as I will show you right now in a nuclear bomb blast. And this is precisely what they have found there. Now, was it a nuclear bomb blast? I don't know. I have no idea. But I can tell you what, it could have easily been the Venus impact. All right, this is AtomCentral.com. Every single thing that's here is going to vaporize, and it's exactly what would happen when Venus, see this? This is the initial shot of the atomic bomb, because it's pushing all that white electrons ahead of it. That's what happens. That's what a burst of energy and illumination is all the white particles lead the black particles, and they just fuse with whatever's ever in front of them, and then they create all this Trinitite stuff. All right, so here it is. Just look, it's not even moving it. It's just because it's so energetic. Now comes the black part, and it'll blow it away. But by this time, all that glassy stuff is made, and that's the end of it. All right, if I am going to make the claims I'm making, I have to support every story there was, one way or the other, say this makes sense or it doesn't. Zeus makes sense to me. This just came out, I don't know, a week or so ago, and this is about Zeus and how he was the supreme god of the Greeks. A mighty deity meted out justice from atop Mount Olympus. I looked at Mount Olympus. It is a heart. Literally is a heart. When they came to Earth, they came as humanly formed gods. When they were in space, they were planets. They were anything they wanted to be. As I think I showed you, if you read Metamorphosis by Ovid, you will see they could change themselves into anything. Fungus, trees, constellations, rivers, anything they wanted to be. And they came down to have sex with the women, so they came down as very handsome gods. And that's why they turned against God, because they wanted to do that. And Zeus was as bad as any of them. He had sex with everybody that was walking around. And the only problem was, all of these godly human interactions, the sons of God went into the daughters of man. They created giants. They went off the scale. And so it was out of control. They had to do something. Jupiter, who is Zeus, sent the great flood to wipe everything off the face of the planet. And at the end, that's when Venus came down and all that stuff happened. And it could have happened right dead smack onto Sodom and Gomorrah. Somebody got hit hard, and it could have been done. Now, unless you've been watching my stuff, you may have never even heard his name. It's Immanuel Velikovsky. Now, I wrote this book in 2015 to say that I have found all the things that Velikovsky said were true, and nobody would even allow him to publish this book. I mean, he did publish it, and it was on number one on the bestseller list for 11 weeks in a row. People couldn't get enough of it, and the publishers the academics forced the publisher to take it off the bookshelves, and they did. And then they went about destroying him. He still wrote some more books, but by then he was just considered an idiot because they just literally destroyed him. And then Carl Sagan, years later, even after he was dead, just belittled him. And he was the one that was right about all of this stuff because he did the research. So I'm a little tainted about this because of my experience as well. So I wrote this book saying their minds are in collision with the truth. Mudfossils and Velikovsky are minds in collision. My Mudfossil proved exactly what he said. Now, Velikovsky would have absolutely no way of knowing this would happen. This is the picture of Mars. This is wider than the United States. This huge gouge from an impact from Venus, and the electrical discharge from Venus was absolutely incredible. This is just exactly like a welder arc. And that's because Venus spins backwards, first of all. And secondly, it interacted with Mars by just scraping right across it and gouged Mars, something terrible. All right, look at it. I believe it hit here coming this way. And that's where it splattered into it, and this just gouged out, and Venus just, it was pretty much the electrical push charge, and the other one just sort of reacted to this push. But this is exactly what, there's no way for Velikovsky to have any idea about this. And he also had no idea about how hot it was, and he said it had to be about 800 degrees, and it was more than that. It was hotter than that. And guess where it came from? It came from Jupiter, and here's what Jupiter in the red spot would look like. There's Earth on top of the red spot. Now remember, this is the feared god Jupiter. You say, oh, Roger, you must be crazy. Well, let's just find out how crazy I am. What did Ovid say? What did he write about metamorphosis, which means they can change? This Jupiter can change into an ant. It could change into the constellations. It could change into a god, which is a human-looking god, came down, had sex with all the women. That's what happened with this particular Jupiter god, who was Zeus. Okay, if you've been following me, you know that I claim that this is Quetzalcoatl on the east coast of the United States, and this is his digestive system, which is Luray Caverns. Now, there's a whole bunch of other caverns in here. And right down the road from there, over in this area, is called Skyline Caverns. Skyline Caverns looks to me like it's a reabsorption of transition metals and minerals back into the system. And Luray Caverns is where some of the digestive system is happening. I'm not sure exactly what, but there's a ton of enzymes in there creating all kinds of dissolving of the minerals, turn them into a solution, which hardens back up again, causing all these fabulous looking sculptures. And again, this is right about where he poops, and guess where he poops? Right into Washington, D.C. That's the end of his digestive system, and this is where the poop comes out here, and the fluids come out this side. And they mix together in what's called a cloaca, and then they dump out here. And this is it. This is Quetzalcoatl. There's his headdress and all that. Feathers are everything. The feathers are all over the place here. You can't miss it if you stop and look, and if you have the right frame of mind, you can understand. But when you're just locked into, oh, no, that's impossible, that's crazy, it's insane. I didn't say it isn't crazy. I didn't say it isn't insane. I agree. When I found it, I thought I must be going crazy, but when I found all the rest of them too, there's the Typhon and the other side, and then you got Scorpzilla, and you got them all over the place. Every culture had their own dragon. It was all written about, and they all talked about giants and dragons, and there they are. And that's the digestive system. They all had to eat, and they all had to have all kinds of enzymes, and that's where you find the enzymes dissolving minerals. That's what it does in your body, too. All right, this is Metamorphosis by Ovid. Now, he wrote from the time of creation, ages of mankind, the flood, Deucalion, who was Noah, and then all of the different gods and goddesses and titans and all of that stuff. 15 books he wrote, I think 15, yeah. And he's way down here. He's start to get into Hercules. I mean, this is the entire history of humanity. And the first thing he brings up is this right here. He says, I intend to speak of forms changed into new entities. So things that are changed into something else, like a butterfly comes out of a caterpillar. That's what metamorphosis, change. Now, accompanying this theme that is about changing entities, accompanying this thing is often violence inflicted upon a victim whose transformation becomes part of the natural landscape. And that's what they are. They became the mountains and all that stuff. These things were giants. And it talks about amalgamating the hunter and the hunted. I don't know about that, but I can tell you what, they did turn into the landscape. And here's what they were capable of doing. There is a great variety among the types of transformations that take place. From humans into inanimate objects like the Nile River and constellations and animals, and they're going into plants. They can become plants. They can go from animals into ants. They can become funguses and mushrooms and become humans out of that. They can change sexes from one sex to another, from one color to another. Metamorphoses themselves are often located metatextually within the poem. Now they start to try to say, well, the guy really was sort of, this phenomenon is merely one aspect of Ovid's extensive use of illusion and disguise. No, he was writing about what actually did happen. That's my take on it. These things could transform and do anything they want. Now I'm going to show you what Zeus did do and his female body part. Because he could change sexes. They could change sexes. They could do anything they want. He obviously, if he was a planet the size of Jupiter, he had to come down and have sex with women. He's not coming down as Jupiter. He's coming down in the body of a very handsome god. And then it was all about taking advantage of the women. And that's what the whole thing was about. Let's go down and have a sex party. 200 of us sign our oath by the river Styx. And we'll pledge to do this thing together, so that if there's enough of us, he can't do anything. Well, guess what? Yes, he could. Now, apparently, there's a little bit of contention in me now about whether God Almighty forced Zeus to spit out Venus to cause this devastation and wipe out all this nastiness that was going on. Because apparently it was going on Mars, too, because Mars got absolutely impacted. Gone, all that stuff. And that's why all this stuff is in space. There's body parts all over space. I've been showing it over and over. Nobody can get their mind around this because it's just too spectacular. But let's just go to the evidence. All right, you should know by now that I study the biology of Earth. These gigantic caverns, those are nothing more than digestive systems. These are all enzymes that are breaking down minerals, and then they turn into these deposits from mineralization of broken down stuff. That's what happens in your body. The enzymes attack things, break them down, your body absorbs them. And here, it's not absorbing them anymore, so they're just piling up in here. Now, what about Venus? What about Mars? I think I showed you this, or I'm going to show it to you again, because you need to understand this fully. This was the impact that killed Mars. It totally destroyed it, smashed it. It destroyed it. Took all of the atmosphere basically off, impacted it, roasted everything, destroyed everything, and turned it into a dry red planet. because it's all blood and guts, and they flew all over. There had to be a gigantic number of creatures here, just like there was on Earth. And on Earth, the same thing happened, and they're all mud fossils now, and they are everywhere. So don't tell me there wasn't a lot of them. I got them everywhere. And this was what happened with Venus. All right, now they say, I don't know what they claim. They claim some kind of tectonic this or that, no, but that's not. This is, you ask any welder, they'll say, yeah, oh yeah, that's an electric arc. I can do that with an arc welder. And the same thing happened here. So this magnetically smashed into Mars. Now, it also would have bounced off our atmosphere. And when it did, it would have been an enormous electrical discharge as well. And in addition, it would have compacted our atmosphere, which anytime you condense something, you create water. And it would have been boiling hot water. It would have been just like coming off of a steam thing. I mean, and the Earth was just roasted, and all of these creatures had their flesh boiled off them. Now, where did this thing hit? You see here? This, if you were there, that's Sodom and that's Gomorrah. So, what can I say? Of course, this is Venus, obvious, I'm just teasing. But on Earth, one of these places on Earth was going to get hit really intensely, and the other place is not so bad. Could God say, I want you to hit Sodom and Gomorrah? I don't like those people at all. I would think so. All right, and it did come out of a literal vagina on Jupiter. Now, I showed you, I believe, that Ovid wrote what Hesiod wrote, which is that they could change sexes, they could do anything they wanted. They could become big or ants or mushrooms or anything they wanted. So you have to take that into consideration. Nobody ever has. These guys could change themselves into anything. So Jupiter, a male, huge, tough guy god, created a vagina to give birth to Venus. And that is what combusted our atmosphere, smashed in, probably hit Sodom and Gomorrah almost head on. And because my stuff is a little different than everybody else's, I think. Because my stuff is just perfect, it's flawless. And it's all over, it's everywhere. And then there's other places where it's highly eroded, and other places there's not much of it at all. But anyway, it's worldwide. They do know this now. It's called exceptional preservation worldwide, one layer, salty silicates. And I understand all of that because of this intense heat. And of course, water caused a worldwide flood. On top of all the water solutions, and we're doing all this stuff all over, and it killed all the giants, which is what the intention of that interaction was. That Jupiter was to give birth to a destroyer planet, which is this one right here, Venus. Spins backwards, and it would, coming out of a forward spinning right-hand rule one, it would be rolling backwards when it came out, and it is. It's the only one in the solar system, other sides. Uranus is a little bit out of balance, but not like this, when they're spinning backwards. So it's not only scrubbing through the universe, having to push its way, it's going backwards, scrubbing, like going down the street with your tires going backwards. That's why it's so hot. I think it's like 900 degrees. All right, I'm just going to wrap it up with this. There's immortal gods. These are the Olympians. They're immortal. What does that mean? They don't die. Where are they now? Well, they talk about Tartarus. I don't know. I have no idea. Did they go off planet? I don't know. Nobody knows. These were the younger immortals, were victorious and became known as the Olympians. The names of the principal Olympian gods were also immortals. Zeus, who we're just talking about, which was the top god. Hera, which is his wife. Athena, Hestia, Dionysus, Apollo, Ares, Aphrodite, Poseidon, Demeter, Artemis, Hephaestus, and Hermes. Those were immortal. And I know there was a bunch of other ones too. Well, where are they today? All right, this is a very deep dive. Because if the things I'm saying are true, and the things that they wrote were true, and they could change themselves into anything they wanted, plants and animals and stars and rivers, and they could be just laying around on the ground and you'd never even know they were there, if that's true. Or are they locked in Tartarus, as is some other stories talk about? Here it is right here. Tartarus. In Greek mythology, Tartarus is the deep abyss and is used as a dungeon of torment and suffering for the wicked and as a prison for the Titans, which were the immortals. Tartarus is the place where, according to Plato's Gorgias, which is 400 BC, souls are judged after death and where the wicked receive divine punishment. Hesiod, who I've talked about, who was the first one to write from Zeus's daughters, the Muses, he wrote the Theogony. Tartarus is described as one of the earliest beings to exist, alongside chaos, Gaia, and Earth and Eros, which is love. All right, so this was where it all started. There was chaos, and out of that formed the Earth and love and Tartarus. And I don't think you want to be in Tartarus. Okay, I know this is probably getting a little long, and you have to do this stuff on your own. What you need to do is to look up Apollodorus. Read Apollodorus. That is the ancient Greek mythology, right down the line. And this was, Apollodorus took his information mostly from Hesiod and the earlier writers. But this is all about Tartarus and Prometheus and all of these men of renown, the men of old, which were the giants that came after the giants that were in the earth, which is the Titans and the Gaia and all that stuff. Those were the Titans that were in the earth in those days. And after that came all of these giants. Two totally separate, different things. And they were the men of renown, the men of old, Zeus and Tartarus, all of these giants. Prometheus, these are the men of renown. So I'm going to leave it at that, but there's a lot to speak about, and I'd love to be able to engage in a discussion with somebody that has a good understanding of some of these ancient texts. I'm starting to get there, but there's a lot to look into here, and a lot of it's biblical as well, because they also took their same sources from these same places. They just worded them a little different, and they took out all the crazy stuff like Enoch. There was a lot more that they left out that we never knew about. It's hidden from us. And that's what Jesus said. He said in the end, there was going to be nothing that was hidden will stay hidden. Everything's going to be revealed, and it's being revealed right now. All this stuff was true. And if you just hide yourself from it and you're just perfectly happy, deluded, then that's up to you. But I like to look for the truth of things and take it from there. Because according to what they say, if you're going somewhere to be judged and you didn't care about anything, who cares about that? I just want to have a good time. I don't think that's going to work out well for you in the end. But again, these are things I do not know. I am searching. And if you're here on my channel, you probably are too. But you have to make aware with other friends of yours and so forth and make discussion. I had a fabulous comment from somebody who said, I do this every day. So they say every night they get together like watching Jeopardy. Except they watch my channel and they discuss it. That would be fabulous. I have nobody in my life whatsoever, nobody, zero, that is even interested in this stuff. It's hard for me to believe how uninterested people are in something that really makes such a huge difference to everything. I mean, everything. Not a single word you've been told literally is true. Nothing about history, nothing about geology, nothing about our ancient past, about Darwin and all that's nonsense, the Big Bang, physics, all that stuff is all based on guesses that they weren't right. These are the things that we need to look into. Then if you think it's not right, well, go about your business. And I'll go about mine. I still love you. Have a wonderful day. And I don't mean to shock you, but somebody gonna have to do it.